introduce Mike Corradini, who's going to give our first flash talk. Mike, if you could come up to the podium here, and we'll get you teed up. So you all know about these flash talks, you know, the Bachachkas, however you pronounce those things, that kind of forward you through it. So Mike, you have a certain amount of time. I want to introduce you. He's a distinguished professor of nuclear engineering and engineering physics at UW-Madison.
Could you come up here?
Published widely in the areas of vapor explosion phenomenon, jet spray dynamics, and transport phenomenon in multi-phase systems.
If you could just
I know I was just
tell me which one.
working on those yesterday. But in any case, so he's going to talk with us more about this behavior and the connection to consumer choice behavior and the impact of that, because that's what this particular session's all about. So as he's setting that up, we will move into your talk soon, and it'll be teed up. Is that correct? Mike, would you like this microphone or the podium? This one? Okay. So everyone, Mike Corradini.
Okay, I've never done a flash talk, so I have 20 seconds or else it changes. So this ought to be fun. So I gave you a bunch of pictures. Everybody can look at all of these. Before I lose my 20 seconds, that's actually a house in the lower left. That's not a Volkswagen. So I didn't know exactly what the audience was expecting. So my feeling is that the most important thing for you all is to get some information, hopefully get some inspiration, and then take some sort of action. All right? I'm going to take less than 20 seconds. The first thing is that people want to know, so I'm going to talk at the global and get smaller, smaller, smaller. The first thing you all ought to know is that although we're up here somewhere, there are others that are higher than us in terms of human development versus energy consumption. And the thing I want you to leave you with is all the people that want to be like us, I was afraid that was going to happen, is down at the bottom. Okay? The second fact I want to get across is that even today, after many decades, we still use almost totally fossil fuels, about 85% in all our daily life. And it's probably going to change on me anyway. But I wanted to point out this is primarily fossil fuels. If you look at end use, the thing I want to get across, a single message, is that with all these various resources, it really comes down into transportation, industrial use, commercial and residential, approximately a third, a third, a third. And I want to talk about each of these individually. Like petroleum, almost all of it is transportation, a little bit industrial. We're going to go faster, I hope. Gas. Natural gas is the most interesting. Right now, it's the solution to everything, and that could be a problem. We use it for transport, we use it for industry, we use it for residential and commercial, we use it for electrical power. Any sort of change in natural gas could get us into a problem because it's essentially everywhere. Coal, almost strictly electrical power generation. Renewables, primarily hydro, electrical power generation to some small extent in the others. Nuclear, electrical power generation. And what I want to get across for electricity usage is that this is kind of the thing that we tend to use for everything. I'm not going to ask you all to raise your toys, but I'm sure there's iPhones and this and that out there. And that is all driven essentially by electricity, and the growth in that is quite large even in a developed country. If you're concerned about greenhouse gases, this is kind of the breakdown of what you do and what you use and how greenhouse gases are generated. Either electrical power industry here, transportation, industry, agriculture, residential. Now let's talk about price. So unfortunately, as an engineer, price, I believe, drives everything. If I can't cost it out, you're not going to change your behavior. Residential electricity in constant dollars, in real dollars, is actually cheaper today than it was back in the 60s. Natural gas is a little bit more expensive, but surprisingly not that much more expensive compared to where it was in the 60s. Gasoline used to be about a month ago, but not anymore. All right? Which means that for all intents and purposes, energy is cheap. And when something is cheap, I start using it. Okay? Unfortunately. And unless I make it costly or more costly, we're going to have a problem. If you take a combination of transportation, the vehicle and gasoline, and what we do in daily life and household, add it together, even though energy is cheap, it is still our #1 consumer cost. Now, I was trying to get across the idea of how I do this sustainably, and I came across something that's kind of interesting. It's called embodied energy. Right? It's a new terminology that is not just the energy I use, but what is in a product. And I'm going to go more than 20 seconds, but I have controls. Here is something you can look up in what embodied energy is defined as. I have 20 seconds. I'm going back. But I want to get across a couple other things. I noticed at the beginning of the discussion that we were identifying students. When Paul Meyer was a student here in the Nelson Institute, he essentially developed a technique for doing this for electrical energy usage, where he not only took the energy to essentially produce the electricity we have, but also all the associated energy to build the systems. And I would point to him as an example of somebody here who has done this about 15 years ago. Another example that I think causes us to take action is trying to determine your environmental footprint. Another student in engineering physics, Sama Bilbao, before she left to become a professor at VCU, developed this, a personal environmental calculator. You can look it up. I left the website. And you can take a little test as to how do you affect the environment on your daily level. I have 20 seconds. I'm going back. And the reason I picked these two examples are these are students during their thesis work and essentially getting some sort of passion about something that involves environmental sustainability, environmental impact. So I'll leave you with this. Can we have it all, and what are we inspired to do? We always want everything. It's got to be long-lasting, it's got to be affordable, it's got to be domestic, clean, and it can't be in my backyard. But all of these things can't be necessarily satisfied simultaneously. It takes the action of all of you to do something in your consumer